In the dim, flickering light of the museum's restricted wing, where the air hung heavy with the scent of aged stone and forgotten incense, Dr. Elias Thorne paused before the artifact that had haunted his dreams for years. It wasn't the grandeur of the Egyptian sarcophagi or the intricate Mayan carvings that drew him here after hours, slipping past the night guards with a forged keycard and a heart pounding like a war drum. No, it was the statue, the one they called the Sentinel, unearthed from a Siberian permafrost cave in 1923, dated to over 1,000 years old, yet defying every carbon test with its seamless obsidian surface, etched with glyphs that no linguist could decipher. It stood 7 feet tall, humanoid but not human, its elongated skull tapering to a point, almond-shaped eyes carved in hollow relief, limbs elongated like a praying mantis frozen in eternal vigilance. The locals who discovered it whispered of star-fallen gods, of warnings from the sky, but to Elias it was just another puzzle, another chance to mock the universe's solemnity. He was 32, disheveled in his tweed jacket stained with coffee from too many late nights, his brown hair a wild mop that matched the chaos in his mind. Archaeology was supposed to be his salvation after the divorce, after losing tenure at Oxford for unsubstantiated theories about ancient astronauts. But tonight, fueled by a flask of cheap whiskey pilfered from the faculty lounge, Elias wasn't here for peer-reviewed papers. He was here to rebel, to spit in the face of the academic gods who dismissed him. The Sentinel loomed before him, its surface cool and unnaturally smooth under his fingertips, like polished glass forged in a void. "You," he slurred, circling it with a grin that was half mad, half mischievous. "You think you're so mysterious, don't you? Sitting here for a millennium judging us ants. Well, here's to you, you stony bastard." He leaned in, puckered his lips in exaggerated fashion, and planted a wet, theatrical kiss right on the statue's lipless mouth, the sound echoing absurdly in the silence like a challenge to the gods themselves. Laughter bubbled from his throat as he pulled back, wiping his mouth with the back of his hand. "See, even aliens can't resist a good smooch. Now what do you say? Take me to your leader, or just ET phone home?" He waited, the whiskey haze making the shadows dance, expecting nothing but the hum of the climate control. But then a tremor, subtle at first, like the earth holding its breath. The statue's eyes, those hollow carvings, shimmered. Elias blinked, chalking it to the booze, but the shimmer deepened, a faint luminescence bleeding from within, like bioluminescent ink seeping through paper. Cracks of light spiderwebbed across the obsidian, not breaking but awakening, and the eyes, oh God, the eyes, flared open, twin voids of swirling galaxies pulling him in like black holes disguised as stares. "You," a voice rasped, not from the air but from inside his skull, a vibration that rattled his teeth and tasted of ozone and ancient regret, "have doomed your species." Elias staggered back, his flask clattering to the marble floor, whiskey pooling like blood. His mind screamed hallucination, mold spores perhaps, or the whiskey laced with something from the dig site, but his body knew better, knees buckling as the Sentinel's form shifted. The obsidian softened, not melting but unfolding, limbs elongating further with a sound like cracking ice over a frozen lake. It stepped forward, 7 feet becoming 8, the pedestal crumbling to dust beneath feet that weren't feet but tendrils coiling into solidity. The air grew thick, charged, as if the statue, no, the being, was drawing power from the very atmosphere, siphoning the oxygen from Elias's lungs. He gasped, clutching his chest, the room spinning into a vortex of shadows and starlight. What are you?" he managed, voice a croak, scrambling backward until his spine hit a display case of Sumerian tablets, the glass cracking under the impact. The being tilted its head, the motion fluid, predatory, its eyes locking onto his with an intelligence that spanned eons. Its voice echoed again, not words but concepts imprinted directly onto his neurons, bypassing language like a surgeon's scalpel. "I am the last warden. sealed here by the accord of the veil to watch and wait. Your touch, your irreverence, has unraveled the bindings. The veil thins now, and what you call reality will fracture. Elias's laugh was hysterical, a desperate bark against the encroaching dread. Bindings? Veil? This is insane. You're a statue, a rock. I kissed a rock, and now you're quoting Lovecraft? But even as he spoke, the museum trembled. Alarms wailed in the distance, red lights pulsing like arterial blood, but they sounded muffled as if from underwater. Outside the windows, the night sky twisted, stars streaking not in their familiar arcs but in erratic spirals, constellations bleeding into one another like ink in rain. The warden extended a hand, fingers unfurling into filaments that hovered inches from Elias's face, not touching but probing, tasting his fear like a sommelier with vintage terror. You humans. So fragile, so bold. We came once, in the age of your ice, seeding thoughts into your primitive minds, fire, wheel, the stars as maps. But you grew reckless, splitting atoms before you mended souls. The accord was mercy, a quarantine, a slumber for us, a warning etched in stone for you. Do not wake what sleeps beyond. But you joked. You kissed. Memories flooded Elias then, not his own, flashes of a world before humanity, of crystalline spires piercing gas giants, of fleets that danced between wormholes like fireflies in a cosmic storm. He saw the warden's kin, beings of pure energy bound into form, fleeing a cataclysm not of their making, but of a greater void, a hunger that devoured realities. Earth was to be a sanctuary, a neutral ground, but humanity's curiosity turned to conquest, probing the skies with signals that echoed like screams into the dark. The accord sealed the wardens in stasis, their forms petrified as eternal sentinels, eyes closed until the end of days, or until folly like his. Please, Elias whispered, the whiskey's bravado evaporating, leaving him raw and small. I didn't mean undo it. Whatever I did, take it back. The warden's eyes dimmed slightly, a flicker of what might have been pity. There is no undoing. The kiss was catalyst, your saliva, carbon, salt, the essence of your world, a key turning in forbidden locks. Feel it now. And he did. The tremor escalated into a quake, the museum's foundations groaning as if the earth itself recoiled. Cracks snaked up the walls, not from force but from impossibility. Bricks dissolving into fractals of light, exhibits warping. A Viking sword twisting into a helix of screaming faces. A Ming vase blooming with thorny vines that whispered in forgotten tongues. Elias crawled toward the exit, but the doors had vanished, replaced by a membrane of shimmering haze, like looking through warped glass into a hallway that stretched infinitely, lined with doors that opened onto burning nebula. Screams pierced the night, human screams from beyond the walls. Elias pressed his ear to the floor, hearing the chaos unfolding. Cars in the street levitating, engines igniting spontaneously into pillars of plasma, pedestrians staring skyward as auroras tore open, not dancing lights but wounds in the fabric of space, vomiting tendrils of shadow that latched onto flesh, pulling souls into the ether. News helicopters buzzed overhead, their spotlights fracturing into rainbows that seared retinas, pilots' voices crackling over radios with pleas that dissolved into static laced with alien harmonics. The warden loomed over him, its form stabilizing into something more defined. Skin like iridescent scales, a mouth forming from the lipless gash, exhaling mist that carried scents of alien oceans. This is the unraveling. The veil rends, and the devourers sense the breach. They come not for conquest, but for harvest. Your species, with its teeming minds and fragile forms, is ripe. Elias's mind reeled, piecing together fragments from his dismissed theories. The Fermi paradox, the great silence of the cosmos, not emptiness but deliberate absence. Devourers, what are they? Shadows of the elder collapse, entities that feed on probability, on the quantum foam of existence. We wardens held them at bay, our stasis a dam against the flood. Now the dam cracks, and your world becomes the sieve. Outside, the sky fully tore. Elias glimpsed it through the haze, a colossal rift miles wide ringed in violet fire, from which poured not ships but voids, formless maws that warped light around them, gravity inverting in their wake. Buildings inverted too, spires plunging upward into the maw, people drawn skyward in silent ascension, their bodies elongating into strings of light before vanishing. London, his London, burned not with flame but with unraveling, the Thames reversing flow into the heavens, fish flopping in aerial schools before dissolving into mist. He bolted, or tried to, the warden's tendrils gently but firmly coiling around his wrist, not restraining but guiding, as if he were a child stumbling into traffic. "Let me go! I have to warn them. Governments, the UN, someone." Warn? They already know in their bones. See. The warden's eyes pulsed and visions assaulted Elias. World leaders in bunkers, screens flickering with feeds of the rift, scientists babbling about solar flares that weren't solar, religious figures on global broadcasts proclaiming the rapture or the return of elder gods, social media exploding in a final frenzy of selfies under doomsday skies, hashtags like Veil Tear and Kiss of Doom trending as billions uploaded their last breaths. But amid the panic, patterns emerged, pockets of resistance, humans who had heeded ancient warnings, indigenous tribes in the Amazon chanting glyphs that matched the Sentinel's etchings, their voices weaving a fragile counter-melody against the chaos. In Japan, Shinto priests at forgotten shrines activated seals carved in the warden's image, buying minutes for evacuations. Even Elias's ex-wife Clara, a physicist he'd dismissed as too pragmatic, was in Geneva, her team at CERN reversing particle accelerators to seal micro-rifts, her face pale but determined on a cracked monitor. The warden nodded as if reading his thoughts. Some threads endure. But you, Kisser, in the dim, flickering light of the museum's restricted wing, where the air hung heavy with the scent of aged stone and forgotten incense, Dr. Elias Thorne paused before the artifact that had haunted his dreams for years. It wasn't the grandeur of the Egyptian sarcophagi or the intricate Mayan carvings that drew him here after hours, slipping past the night guards with a forged keycard and a heart pounding like a war drum. No, it was the statue, the one they called the Sentinel, unearthed from a Siberian permafrost cave in 1923, dated to over 1,000 years old, yet defying every carbon test with its seamless obsidian surface,